it's Jack from Cultaholic.com and we are hurtling further down the road to WrestleMania. Only a few days now until Saturday and Sunday, the two-day WrestleMania extravaganza. What's it going to be like? Genuinely don't know. But along the way, we do keep on picking up bits and pieces of news. And we have various different bits of news for you from around the world of wrestling today. So let's, without any further ado, get straight into those headlines. First of all, The Undertaker has apologized to an AEW star on social media. Next up, AEW have revealed the first half of their TNT Championship tournament bracket. And finally, we take a look at the details behind a pretty scary botched spot from this week's Monday Night Raw. So yes, Undertaker apologized to an AEW star on social media, and it wasn't just any AEW star. It was arguably the biggest of all the AEW stars, former AEW World Champion, Le Champion, excuse me, Chris Jericho. This came following Undertaker's promo on Monday Night Raw when he was calling out AJ Styles. It was a very shooty sort of promo, shades of American Badass Undertaker here and there, as opposed to the dead man. And at one stage, he called AJ Styles an ass clown, which a few people noticed isn't exactly an original Undertaker insult. It actually is a term that Jericho used quite a lot back in the day. In fact, one fan even tweeted Jericho saying, "Big lawsuit incoming," with Undertaker's use of ass clown on Raw, and to many people's surprise, Jericho actually spoke up on this issue. But unfortunately, if anybody was wanting a bit of drama, a bit of spark to the AEW WWE War, and a big showdown online between Jericho and The Undertaker, that's not exactly what happened. Jericho took a very respectful approach. Obviously, he's known The Undertaker for many years when they were both in WWE together, so he said basically he can use as many of my catchphrases as he wants. He's The Undertaker, which in a way does sort of make sense. Now, Jericho's tone here may not be that surprising. He is often very open when it comes to discussing the inner workings of the wrestling business, or even sharing a joke with his friends, as we are seeing in this example, as we've seen in his many interviews and that sort of thing on Talk is Jericho. However, the surprising element to this story for me is actually Undertaker's reply, which was very good-natured as well, which for an undead demon zombie wizard, biker dude, was actually very affable and very friendly. He simply said, "My bad, Jericho, I knew I'd heard that somewhere before." And yeah, that's really nice from the old Undertaker, isn't it? To be fair, we have seen an increase in Undertaker's social media activity over the past few months. I mean, there's that now infamous Tiger photo, which was mocked by AJ Styles on a recent Raw. But yeah, Undertaker seems to be slipping further and further away from his dead man character and more towards either the real him, which they're kind of trying to portray, or possibly the American Badass gimmick, which is again more like the real him. By all accounts, I don't actually know him. But of course I don't know him. Why am I making a joke about that? It's The Undertaker. But apparently the American Badass is more like the real him. But I think that we could just see full-on, massive character American Badass as well. Am I making a stupid prediction here? I feel like that's going to happen. I feel like the Boneyard's going to be like a junkyard or a scrapyard or something. I feel like it's going to happen. But regardless, it's nice to see that Jericho and Undertaker are on good terms, especially in the world of wrestling, especially when oftentimes older wrestlers can just take horrible shots at each other many years after their respective feuds or rivalries or whatever it was back in the day. So nice to see Jericho and Undertaker getting along despite working on opposite sides of the divide. Now let's go to AEW. Now if you watched yesterday's news update, you'll know that AEW recently announced a brand new championship, the TNT Championship, basically their equivalent of a TV championship, and they also announced a new tournament to crown the first winner. Now the first winner of that title will be one of 8 men, but they didn't announce who those 8 men were. Well, today 4 of those competitors have indeed been announced. That's right, the first half of the TNT Championship tournament bracket has been revealed. And it's a pair of very interesting matches because they are rematches from AEW pay-per-views of the past. And when I say of the past, I mean, I'm not going back very far because it's a very young company, but they are both very prominent matches that we've recently seen. The first is Kody versus Shawn Spears. Now, Kody obviously beat Shawn Spears when he first came into the company, and it was a result that surprised many, myself included, because Shawn Spears had just demolished him with that steel chair, which went horribly wrong, and then everyone was expecting him to kind of get a big win over Kody and establish him as a big new heel threat in AEW, and that's never really happened. So this is a big chance for Spears to get one over on Kody and get revenge for that loss on pay-per-view. Now the second match in the tournament that's been announced is also a rematch from a pay-per-view, but a much more recent one, in fact the most recent AEW pay-per-view, and it's Darby Allin versus Sammy Guevara. Now in my mind, these two guys are both heavy favourites for this tournament, so it seems strange to put them against each other in round one, but I have no doubt that it'll be a very exciting matchup. Obviously Darby got the win at the pay-per-view, so now it might be Sammy's turn to get the win over Darby. Then again, if Darby and Kody both win their matches, there's a rematch itself built in there, because Darby and Kody have clashed in some very good encounters and very close encounters as well in the past. So yeah, there's lots of different possibilities here, and that's before we even know who's in the second half of the tournament. That second half will apparently be revealed this week on Dynamite, and then the tournament action will begin next week. Also announced for this week, Kenny Omega will face off against Trent Beretta, one half of the Best Friends, in singles action. Kenny had a really good singles match last week on Dynamite when he successfully defended his AAA Mega Championship against Sammy Guevara, so hopefully he can carry his good form on into this week's show. Sticking with AEW Dynamite now, but less sort of kayfabe storyline news and more actual real-world hard facts news, because you may have noticed that basically AEW are continuing to put out and schedule new shows despite the pandemic going on and despite being unable to really have large gatherings and stuff. They've been very clever about, utilizing their talent wisely, not having too many big groups around at one time, obviously using Daly's Place as a big empty arena so there's no fans there. However, it seems like that venue is no longer viable. AEW have apparently moved Dynamite to an unnamed secret location, which is to prevent fans from trying to, park outside and try and get autographs when people leave, because obviously we're all going to be social distancing. And also apparently there was a testing center for the pandemic right outside Daly's Place, so that's not maybe an ideal situation when it comes to paranoia in the minds of the talent, I suppose. But apparently they are set to tape quite a lot of action this week in this new secret location, and then we'll have more Dynamite to look forward to in the weeks ahead. I'm sad about this news, but I totally understand why, for various reasons. But I am sad about it, and that's because Daly's Place, when it was empty, I think it looked absolutely awesome. It was open air, they had the hard camera face in the Tron. It just seemed really epic, in my opinion. I thought it was really, really cool, and I'm sad to see it go. Hopefully the new venue they've picked, they can get a similar sort of setup where it still looks very impressive, and we're still not too distracted by the lack of, actual wrestling fans. Next up, let's talk about that painful botch on Raw, because if you watched Raw, you'll notice that Montez Ford, I hope he's okay, because he landed hard. So yeah, in the middle of a tag match, Montez Ford hit the ropes, ran to the other side of the ring, and did a huge dive, supposedly onto Austin Theory, but Austin Theory did not catch him, and Montez Ford just landed back first from the ring to the floor on the outside. It looked horrible. GIFs did the rounds on Twitter. Everyone was saying, Austin Theory really should have caught him there. Maybe he'll get some heat for that backstage, because we all speculate too much, because we're idiots. But according to Brian Alvarez of the Wrestling Observer, he reckons that the spot wasn't actually Austin Theory's fault at all, and that it was blown because of instead a mistake by someone else in the match. So from the words of Brian Alvarez, as it turns out, when Montez hit the ropes, Seth was supposed to trip him. Granted, Seth was a little bit late. He actually did get a hold of Montez's foot, and if you watch it back, you can see Seth on the outside of the ring trying to snag Montez Ford's foot as he hits the ropes, but he can't quite get there in time. Maybe when Montez started running, he realized that Seth was too far away, and I just got to keep running, I guess. Seth is actually very athletic and fast, and he did get to him, but Montez apparently got it in his mind that I got to do this dive. So in fact, Alvarez is even saying there that Seth did make it. He did get to Montez in time, but Montez thought, no, he's too far away, and just went for the dive. This, obviously on the outside, caught Austin Theory by a huge surprise. Theory just sees this guy flying at him. He's not in any position to catch Montez Ford. Ford hits the floor, and Theory just sort of does a panic bump because he thinks he was meant to take a bump from that spot. If this is the case, then it just seems like one of those things where there was a kind of a miscommunication between all three guys and it just all went a bit wrong. And if it is indeed the case, if the way that Alvarez is telling it is the truth, then I feel really bad for Austin Theory, because this is his big call up to Raw, especially since joining NXT. He's not even been in the system for that long. He's been called up to Raw. This is his big shot, and people are pinning the blame on him for something that may not even have been his fault. Hopefully everyone takes it a bit easy on the guys in the ring, because they are just trying to entertain us, and given the circumstances, that's pretty nice of them. However, several of those guys that I've just mentioned do have matches at the upcoming WrestleMania 36, and I'll just run through them now. Seth Rollins is taking on Kevin Owens. The Street Profits are defending their Raw Tag Team titles against the team of Angel Garza and Austin Theory. He's in that match as well, replacing the injured Andrade. And finally, let's go to Impact Wrestling and talk about a new full-time signing for the women's division. And it's a pretty exciting one, probably one of the best wrestlers on the independent scene, and certainly one of the most high-profile left in the US, certainly one not signed to WWE or AEW. And that wrestler is none other than Smiley Kylie Rae. Remember Kylie Rae? She was in AEW for a very quick amount of time. Then she left, prompting mass speculation and mass kind of guesswork as to why she'd left. Eventually she had to come out on social media and say, look guys, I left of my own, decision. I was never forced out. Nothing dodgy happened. Just trust me on this. I'm absolutely fine. And everyone kind of went, oh, we may have jumped the gun a little bit there. Kylie Rae was speculated by many to be one of the big stars of the AEW women's division, and now it seems like she's set to become a big star of the Impact Knockouts division. She was on Impact last night, the taped episode of Impact. They're not shooting live shows, obviously, but she was on the taped Impact last night, defeating Cassandra Golden and then being interviewed after the match, and it was officially confirmed that she had signed full-time. And she had this to say in her promo. Rae said it had been an emotional year with ups and downs and highs and lows, but she knew from the moment she stepped in an Impact ring that it was her home. Rae appeared last autumn at Impact's Bound for Glory show, their biggest pay-per-view of the year. She was in the Call Your Shot Gauntlet. It didn't really seem like one way or another a clue as to whether she'd be signing full-time or not, but a lot of people were like, whoa, it seems like she signed full-time, but then it was later proven that, she kind of hadn't, and that her appearances were a little bit more sporadic. But she was in that Call Your Shot Gauntlet at Bound for Glory. She didn't win the match. There was a lot of competitors in there, and eventually it seems like now she has actually signed a full-time deal. Now personally, I think this is a wonderful acquisition for Impact Wrestling, and you know what, a weird feature of Impact is that over the course of their history, despite going through numerous huge ups and massive downs and just being a bit of a wildly inconsistent promotion, their women's division, or their knockouts division as they call it, has always been pretty damn solid, often even very, very good. And this is before the era of the women's revolution in WWE. At the time in Impact, their women were putting on excellent shows before we'd ever even, entertained the idea of women headlining WrestleMania, for example. So this is another very, very good acquisition, I think, by Impact Wrestling. Kylie Rae, one of, I'd say, the best women's wrestlers in the world today, and certainly one of the most charismatic and captivating. And she's been signed to bolster their already impressive Knockouts division. Will she become Knockouts champion? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I think yes. What do you think? This is like a children's TV show. And speaking of the Impact Knockouts division, let's pick a match from there for my daily recommended match. Let's go for Gail Kim versus Awesome Kong from Final Resolution 2008. If you've never seen it before, you are in for a treat. Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more content later on today. We have various different things happening this week in the build-up to big old WrestleMania, and of course, we're going to keep you covered on those two big shows. Now, I don't know how good it's going to be, but we'll be watching, so that'll be fun.